Are you cross-examining this time?
With your lordship's permission.
By all means.
The peace and serenity which it is normal to associate with a home for the elderly in their declining years is in danger of being put at some risk, is it not, if one finds oneself trudging some 3,000 feet down a steep escarpment with many treacherous overhangs in one's dressing gown at 3 o'clock in the morning to attend to a call of nature.
There's a danger, certainly.
There might there not be prima facie grounds for complaint by some who think this is no way to spend the autumn of one's life.
It's not easy to please everyone.
The comment might be made as to what might appear at first sight to be an absence of forethought, to the extent that the question, what kind of planning consultants are these, might find itself being asked in certain quarters with an element of rancour.
Well, this is something one has to learn to come to terms with.
What was passing through your mind in citing the lavatories where you did?
I was thinking of Mrs. Letchworth.
What was the tenor of your thoughts concerning this Mrs. Letchworth?
It occurred to me that she was highly desirable and that I had a chance there.
In other words, your thoughts were elsewhere than on a job you'd undertaken to give your undivided attention to.
I suppose that would be so.
A case, one might say, of cherchez la femme.
Yes, one might say that.
You said that, in your opinion, the oversight was a minor one, that it was an oversight of no very great order, except to those inconvenienced by it. What about the danger that in bedroom slippers, a 93-year-old lady, not perhaps too steady on her pins, as the expression is, might miss her footing and fall from top virtually to bottom?
A feasibility study was carried out in 1970. No dangers of that nature were anticipated.
Is it true that there are mattresses placed against the bottom of the sheer north face, against this very contingency? Unanticipated, though you say it was.
These were placed there subsequently.
As an afterthought, and in response to public outcry, when it was found that old-age pensioners, falling from some considerable height, were going straight through to the underworld on hitting the ground.
To the where?
Oh, the underworld, my lad, sometimes known as Hades.
You mean the infernal regions?
Yes, my lad.
Then say so.
Indeed, it is true, is it not, that some of the pensioners, even after the provision of mattresses, were continuing to go straight through, this time taking the mattresses with them. And I put it to you that it is no part of the divine purpose that man or woman should, after leading a possibly blameless life for 70 or 80 years, make his or her entrance into the infernal regions like a sack of coals coming down a chute, arrive in Hades unannounced and wrapped in a mattress. And one might be said to have got off to a dubious start so far as the afterlife is concerned.
It could lead to problems.
It could lead to eternal damnation.
I suppose so, yes.
Scarcely an inviting prospect, mattress or no mattress.
I suppose not.
It is to establish this vital point beyond any shadow of doubt that at a later stage in the hearing, defense counsel brings a man of God to the witness box.
If one was so unfortunate as to be damned eternally, one would know all about it, I presume.
Oh, yes, indeed. And it is for this reason, in the main, that one advises one's parishioners against it.
Nothing to look forward to except an endless round of sin and vice, indulged in unremittingly for the better part, perhaps, of eternity, until such glamour as it might once have had has long since departed from it.
That would be about the size of it, yes.
It would take all pleasure out of the afterlife and leave one feeling fit for very little afterwards.
Anyone of pensionable age would very likely find it too much for them.
Nor, presumably, would there be any getting out of it at all easily. If you don't take part with the others, show willing, as the expression is, you are looked at, one imagines, as something of a leper, and might possibly be sent to Coventry by your fellow damnees.
It is possible to get out of it by pleading sick, if you don't for any reason feel up to it for an eon or two. But they're not exactly enraptured when you do.
Satan, in particular, taking a somewhat poor view.
Satan would come down like a ton of bricks.
One would come, moreover, would one not, on frequent occasions, face to face with Satan.
That is so, yes.
Who is not the sort of person one would want to meet on a dark night, I would imagine.
Indeed not.
Many a person has been frightened out of his wits by such an encounter unexpectedly.
But one would normally say, in that sort of situation, get thee behind me, Satan.
One would scarcely feel any safer with him there, I imagine.
He has been known to take advantage.
Almost too great a temptation to resist, one would imagine.
I think at this point we might resist the temptation to go any further with this line of questioning. We will adjourn and return at 2:15.
And as a result of this, you paid a visit to a solicitor, I believe.
That's right.
Are we taking this evidence in the middle?
It would seem better that way, my lad.
Very good.
Can you tell us how this visit came about?
I was talking to my friend and telling him what had happened. which I won't bother with now, and he said, would you like to see a solicitor? So I said, I've already seen one. He said, where? I said, on the television. He said, would you recognise him again? I said, yes, anywhere. So he said, right, what are we waiting for?
Then, as a result, you fetched up, I think I'm right in saying, at the offices of Purdue, Gabbitas, Tatchbrook and Hobart, Commissioners for Oaths.
Yes, to see Mr. Hobart.
Whom you immediately recognised as the one you had seen on television.
Oh, yes, it was the same one, all right.
And your first words to him were what?
I said, can you hear an oath? And he went across to the open window with his hand cupped round his ear and he said, no. I don't think so, can you?
Whereupon?
Whereupon, I said, it's my brother-in-law.
Your brother-in-law comes into this in what way?
Well, he'd hurt himself.
Having hit his thumb with a hammer while nailing up a picture of the infant Jesus.
That's right.
And he wanted, without delay, to come out with an oath of some description in order to relieve his feelings.
He was hopping about from one foot to the other.
Having been bottling it up for some time while you were looking for a solicitor. And with a homemade gag in his mouth to prevent the premature utterance of the oath.
That's right. He was all set to utter it the moment the gag was removed.
When the formalities were completed?
Yes.
What was the oath he was all set to come out with?
Well, may I write it down?
Yes, she can write it down.
Hells, bells, and buckets of blood.
There were several possibilities. That he had a list. That was his first choice.
What was the reaction of your Mr. Hobart, the solicitor you had seen on television and were now confronting in the flesh, to the information that this was what you wanted to see him about?
He was very understanding and produced this chair leg.
Chair leg?
It was about so long, my lord.
With what purpose in mind?
Well, he said the formalities might take some little time.
Yes.
Well, he was doubled up, you see, with a pain as well as jumping about.
Well, how does the chair leg come into this?
Well, he said as the formalities might take some little time and he was in pain, he might like to be put under sedation till they were completed. He said it was one of the few concessions that the law allowed to human frailty, and we might as well take advantage of it.
By striking him over the head with the chair leg.
Is this common practice?
I've had no personal experience of it, my lad.
We were hoping to have it under the swear now, pay later scheme.
Well, couldn't all this have been done over the telephone?
Husbands ringing in from public call boxes purporting to be swearing on behalf of wives and sweethearts. Greengrocers impersonating members of Parliament in order to let rip under the cloak of privilege. Make a mockery of the whole business, my lad.
They said it could be the thin end of a very ugly wedge.
Yes, I see the force of that, I suppose. Very well.
And to what extent is 3,000 feet an acceptable height when elderly people are called upon to make the journey both up and down several times a day as well as during the night?
Oh, by no means unacceptable, given a certain degree of fitness, of course.
Fitness by no means beyond the reach of, for example, his lordship, or of such of the old-age pensioners who are in court at the moment.
Oh, yes, indeed, yes.
It has been said that you are as young as you feel, and that the secret of eternal youth is available to any one of us who chooses to open his mind to it.
Queen Victoria is an example here, I think.
It has been plausibly suggested, has it not, that even as quite an old woman, Queen Victoria, who harboured a secret longing to wheel a wheelbarrow through streets broad and narrow, crying cockles and mussels, alive, alive, oh, and, in fact, to do so, moreover, at dead of night, did, in fact, on numerous occasions, succumb to this craving.
Yes, it's not too fanciful to imagine the scene where the sleeping populace of Windsor were awakened from their beds to cheer her as she did so.
Cheer her, indeed. Until they were hoarse before, after a quick gargle, returning to bed and sleep once again.
Oh, indeed.
It might well be, might it not? It might be this kind of activity that was the secret of her eternal youthfulness.
I simply cannot go along with this blatant leading of the witness. It's a waste of public money to bring him here at great expense. If all he has to do when he gets to court is to find various ways of answering yes.
I stand corrected, my lord.
Are we cross-examining?
With your lordship's permission.
By all means.
Would it be true to say that it makes nonsense of the whole notion of high-altitude geriatry if old-age pensioners on their journey back to bed in the small hours miss their footing and finish up in heaps at the bottom?
It may well be taken into account as a possibility when constructing a home of this kind. Indeed.
I put it to you, it was not only not so taken in this instance, but that it was blatantly, either by negligence or design, ignored as a possibility.
Oh, by no means. It may well be taken into account as a possibility and then ignored.
A calculated risk.
A risk worth taking in view of the purpose behind the whole exercise, which was in part to discover the effects of such minor oversights in developing buildings of a similar nature.
Thank you.
Counsel for the defence has now opened his case and is questioning his first witness, an experienced mountaineer.
Am I right in saying that you're an experienced mountaineer?
Yes.
Of several years' standing?
Indeed.
Perhaps you would take a look at the model here in the well of the court and show us by means of the model the relative positions 3,000 feet apart of the old people's home and the lavatories serving it.
To what extent can this be described as the same model as heretofore?
It has sustained damage, my lord, and certain corrections may have to be made in respect to the scale.
What is the extent of the damage?
It was sat upon whilst in safekeeping, my lord.
Sat upon?
Yes, my lord.
I see.
There's also some marmalade, my lord, in one or two of the interstices, which has arrived there somewhat mysteriously. And points to there having been a moment, possibly more than one, when the model was the subject for discussion over the breakfast table. Or perhaps it was being used for some other reason, such as to prop up a copy of a daily newspaper.
Where is this marmalade?
Not in any vital spot, my lord.
Does the marmalade invalidate the model in any way?
Not significantly, no, my lord. There are also some crumbs of toast. But these are a non-strategic area, so far as the case is concerned, and it is my submission it need not trouble us if the defence agrees.
I'm perfectly happy.
Yeah.
Oh, well, as long as the model was in safekeeping at the time, which I understand it was, none of this furnishes any sound reason. Once the necessary corrections have been made, why it should not continue to be used.
I'm obliged to your lordship.
If perhaps you could indicate the route which would have to be taken by an old-age pensioner taken short in the night.
Well, of course, the mountain itself, which they would have to negotiate, has now been sat upon. But allowing for that, it would be up here. Along, around this bit, then they would have to negotiate round the overhang.
Which is not easy in bedroom slippers.
Virtually impossible.
May he be shown Exhibit 2. Perhaps you would give us your expert opinion on the effectiveness of bedroom slippers when these have been modified in some such way as we see done in this instance and fitted with crampons.
Under ice or snow, these would be virtually useless. Precipitate an avalanche and cover anyone who was on the throne under a few 100,000 tons of snow.
Not a happy eventuality, perhaps, for the unfortunate person so visited.
Never sit on the throne again with a quiet mind.
It might be said, in fact, that these bedroom slippers are all right for anyone negotiating a rock garden in full daylight. Worse than useless for the sort of terrain we are concerned with here.
I wouldn't wear them. Put it that way.
So, that in other words, the route is in your view an impossible one, even when there is no such distortion as on the model here.
Out of the question.
Thank you.
A formidable line of argument, which has clearly impressed the jury, and which it will now be for the plaintiffs to attempt to demolish in cross-examination.
You say you found this route an impossible one.
Virtually impossible.
Would it be true to say that a mountain goat could negotiate it without any difficulty at all?
I'm not familiar with the habits of mountain goats.
It would be a reasonable supposition, though, would it not, from what you know of mountain goats?
I dare say a mountain goat would make a reasonable stab at it, yes.
In other words, a mountain goat could do so, and yet an old-age pensioner, made in the image of God as he is unable to do what a mere goat, not so fortunate to have been made in God's image, can do with one hoof tied behind his back, so to speak.
A mountain goat can do precious little else but leap about on mountains. That's what it's there for.
And what you're saying, then, amounts to, correct me if I'm wrong, that though the structure known as Bellamy's Folly may be perfectly acceptable as a home for goats who are past their prime, it is to be denied to God's children in their declining years because they're in some way inferior in not being able to reach lavatories which have been placed at the bottom with quite the dexterity with which a goat might do so.
It's not a question of being inferior.
You drew our attention to the overhang. How, in fact, would a qualified mountaineer negotiate such an overhang?
Well, one would first find a toehold. Then give a sort of a heave. And Bob's more or less your uncle.
When you say more or less your uncle, is he your uncle or isn't he?
It depends, my lord, on the nature of the overhang and the strength of the heave.
Would it not be true to say that Bob is in fact your uncle?
Depends which Bob you're referring to.
Well, which Bob are you referring to?
I was referring to a hypothetical Bob.
A hypothetical Bob, who I suggest is as much your uncle as your uncle is, if not more so.
With respect, my lad, I would suggest we are being led here on something of a wild goose chase.
Yes. Where is this line of questioning leading?
I shall be in a better position to say, my lad, when we've got there.
Well, I think we're chasing a blind goose up a wild alley and might well adjourn at this point. We will resume at 2 o'clock.
It seems that counsel may have cooked his client's goose at this juncture. If so, he has now no alternative but to lie on it. We shall see. As we come back at a somewhat later stage in the hearing, counsel has just finished his examination of his second witness, an old-age pensioner who has sustained injury by falling several hundred feet and missing the mattresses placed at the bottom. Counsel for the plaintiff is about to cross-examine.
We've heard your story as to how you came by the injuries you sustained, which is that you missed your footing and fell in consequence some several hundred feet down the mountainside.
That's right.
I would like to suggest to you that your injuries were in fact sustained in a quite different manner.
No. I fell from this ledge and missed the mattress at the bottom.
Let me take you back a number of years to the time when you were quite a young man, 20 years old, in fact. At that time, like a number of other young men who were affected by the same craze, you were bitten by the bug, if I could put it, of ventriloquism.
I dabbled.
Ah, you dabbled, but with scant success, I fancy.
Well, I never got to the top.
I would put it to you, never even rose from the bottom.
Well, it wasn't for the want of trying.
It is by no means clear what line of argument is being pursued here, and the judge is himself obviously far from certain.
In recent years, the memory of that failure has come increasingly to irk you, has it not? To the extent that you've begun, in a somewhat clandestine manner, to take it up again, retiring behind closed doors in order to try, not altogether successfully, once more to throw your voice from one end of the room to the other.
The doors were not closed.
Neither were the windows, I venture to suggest.
What have the windows got to do with it?
My contention is that they were open, my lord, and that witness, whose voice is a very powerful one, might well, in endeavouring to throw his voice, have found his voice instead throwing him.
Was this an upstairs room?
It was sort of upstairs.
And you went out through the open window whilst your voice, which was more powerful than you thought it was, remained where it was in the room across which you were trying to throw it.
I landed in the flower bed.
I see.
These injuries, in short, were sustained in a manner totally at variance with the ones that you've described to us.
Some of them might have been.
And the story, therefore, of your fall, having fallen from a ledge several hundred feet up in the Cairngorms, is the purest fabrication from beginning to end.
Well, I suppose it could be.
Thank you.
Consternation. It is by no means usual for a witness to admit to quite such blatant perjury in the witness box and while under oath, and it is something which will clearly have to be dealt with elsewhere and at some other time. Meanwhile, as the effect of this extraordinary admission dies down, the hearing continues. And old-age pensioner Mrs. Olga Freetumble has been called by counsel and is now likewise being cross-examined by plaintiff's counsel, who is deploying a neat and intriguing line of argument.
Old-age pensioners, we are given to understand, making the journey, sometimes in the middle of the night, and missing their footing, show a tendency to arrive at the bottom with undue suddenness.
Oh, they do. I did myself.
Which is disconcerting, and could indeed be fatal.
It really was.
We've all heard the story, have we not, of the clumsy housemaid who, dropping a plate or a cup to the floor, where it smashes beyond repair, is heard to exclaim indignantly, "But I only let go of it for a split second." Whereupon she receives the retort, "It's enough, Mavis."
Yes?
Now, it well may be, may it not, but for the force of gravity, that plate or cup could have remained intact to this day.
No reason why not.
It is now some 300 years or so, is it not, since gravity was discovered by Sir Isaac Newton.
Well, I suppose that would be so.
Indeed, he had been hunting high and low for it, had he not over a considerable period of time.
I wouldn't know about that.
And the search was finally crowned with success, if legend is to be believed, when he came upon it, so we are told, in the back of a boot and shoe cupboard, to which he'd gone in search for something else, and saw it crouching down behind, so they say, a roll of linoleum, swathed from head to foot in some kind of curtain material, doubtless hoping thereby to be mistaken for Henry Irving in A Midsummer Night's Dream. A vain hope, as it turned out, for Sir Isaac recognised it at once and made the famous remark, "You are the force of gravity, and I claim my £5. Now, had he not had the presence so to do, it is possible that gravity may have eluded him, and that, in consequence, we might still be looking for it.
I suppose that could be true, yes.
Where is this line of questioning leading?
I was endeavouring to demonstrate, my lord, that the force of gravity is a significant factor here, and that the lion's share for the blame for the witness's injury must be laid fairly and squarely at the door of Sir Isaac Newton, since it was his discovery of gravity in the 17th century that may be said to have set in motion the course of events which have culminated in these injuries. And that if this be so, my clients are blameless in the matter.
Is it your contention that if the force of gravity were done away with, no harm would have befallen these unfortunate people?
It is my submission, my lad, that they would have been able to take their time getting both down and up.
This is a line of argument so potentially damaging to the defence that counsel must lose no time in scotching it.
Many is the time, I dare say, when all of us, in a moment of exasperation, as a precious vase or ornament has fallen to the floor and smashed beyond repair, have said to ourselves, "To hell with gravity and all its works." You must indeed have uttered some such expostulation yourself, I imagine.
Oh, yes, many a time.
That gravity is holding the universe together, is it not?
Or so they say.
So that were your wish, and those of countless others in like circumstances, to be granted, and gravity be indeed done away with, the universe would forthwith fall apart at the seams, and you and I would wake up one fine morning, only to find ourselves stepping out of bed into empty space.
Oh, I suppose that could be so, yes.
There are those who might in such a situation be disposed to say, what's happened to the flaming universe all of a sudden? It seems to have disappeared off the face of the earth. Adding, perhaps as an afterthought, it must have gone round to its Auntie Flo's, for some reason. Doubtless having heard of a death in the family and wishing to offer its condolences. And its being early closing day at the butcher's would lend some plausibility to such an assumption, since there could be little other reason for its absence.
Well, I wouldn't know about that.
At all events, no matter with what fervour one might on occasion wish gravity to the devil, the disappearance of the universe would be something that, as an old-age pensioner, you would not greatly appreciate being saddled with, having enough to contend with already in these inflationary times.
Oh, no. I wouldn't like to do without the universe.
You'd kick up a bit of a stink, in fact, to use a homely expression.
I think it would be a liberty.
You think it would be a liberty?
Yes, I do.
Thank you.
Why is he dressed in this peculiar manner?
He is a Sherpa, my lad, Himalayan mountain guide, whose occupation it is to lead climbers to the summits of such mountains as Everest.
Everest?
Oh, yes, my lad.
What is there about the summit of Everest that makes it so vital to arrive there?
It is done in order to keep such people as Sherpa Solo Kombu here in business, my lad, and so prevent their becoming a burden on the state by reason of unemployment.
I see. And you have come here straight from the Himalayas?
Yes, sir.
Having had no time to change?
I was in the middle, sir, of taking a party up the foot of Everest when I was summoned to be here to give evidence to the court.
And where is this party now?
They're on the mountainside playing Ludo, my lad, awaiting his return.
Are they safe?
Oh, yes, sir. They're all roped together. I said I wouldn't be long.
He came here hot foot, my lad.
Hot foot?
Yes, my lad.
How hot?
Not very now, sir.
He arrived some moments ago, my lad, and has been cooling his heels.
Do you want time to cool the rest of your feet?
No, thank you, sir. I'm fine.
In view of the people waiting on the mountain for his return, my lad, it might be better to expedite matters in respect of this witness.
As long as his feet are hot, though they may be, still in certain parts, not doing any damage to the floor of the witness box.
There are scorch marks from a previous witness in another case, my lord, but no further damage.
Very well.
Counsel can now begin questioning the witness as to his dealings with cosmic planning consultants.
Ineptitude is a word which has been bandied about with some frequency in respect of operations advised upon by cosmic planning consultants, and in far-flung places.
Oh, certainly so in the Himalayas.
Now, when you were called upon to act as guide to such of these old folk as needed to make the descent in the small hours, were you surprised in any way to learn that it was necessary for them to negotiate so difficult a route in order to be able to attend to a simple call of nature?
Not when I knew who the planning consultants had been.
Would it be true to say that they were a byword for incompetence wherever you went?
Absolutely.
They were indeed, not to put too fine a point on it, a standing joke in places as far apart as Worthing and Walla Walla, than which no two places could be farther apart.
Oh, difficult.
Unless one perhaps were to take a very circuitous route.
Exactly.
Now, during the course of your duties, in and around Bellamy's Folly, here at the summit of this escarpment in the Cairngorms, you must frequently have heard remarks passed by the pensioners in which the sighting of the lavatories was the subject.
It was the sole topic of conversation.
Nor was the tenor of these remarks notably flattering to cosmic planning consultants, under whose aegis they had been placed there so awkwardly.
They thought it was a disgrace.
In a sense, therefore, it would be true to say that this particular boob, if that is not too strong a word, was, in a manner of speaking, a vindication of an already widespread and long-standing reputation for errors of a startling magnitude.
That would be so.
Thank you.
This is a strong witness whose evidence is potentially very damaging to the plaintiffs, whose counsel must now seek to undermine his credibility in the eyes of the jury.
As an experienced mountain guide, who has been on many an expedition to Everest, among other mountains, you were called in on this scheme at an early stage to reconnoitre in the Alps for a suitable site prior to Bellamy's Folly being, as it were, found to be tailor-made for the purpose.
That is so.
And you were combing the Alps on this errand, and were at the top of the Matterhorn when news reached you that the site had been found near a home in the Cairngorms.
Yes.
What was your reaction to the news, as best you recall?
I was a bit put out.
You were, I suggest, hardly chuffed.
No.
You used the word typical, in fact.
I may have said something of the kind.
I suggest your disenchantment with this eventuality coloured your attitude and your thinking not a little.
Not really.
There was a further cause for dudgeon as well, was there not, when you returned for a time to your more familiar haunts in the Himalayas, where you were wont to stray when not on duty, in the search, perhaps, for the perfect Himalaya, the Himalaya of your dreams, the Himalaya which nevertheless perpetually eluded you.
I can't remember any dudgeon.
Well, let me remind you. It is a fact, is it not, that while you were traipsing round the Alps on behalf of the defendant, you picked up the habit of yodeling from such Swiss Alpine guides as you were thrown amongst from time to time. Insofar that it began to grow on you, and you found yourself doing it almost by force of habit, unaware that you were doing so.
I indulge in the odd yodel.
Rather more, I would suggest, than the odd yodel. So much so that there were complaints, and you had more than one brush with the Nepalese government about it.
We communicated.
What was the substance of those communications?
I can't remember.
Let me refresh your memory once again. The burden of the complaints made to you was that by your yodeling, you were keeping the entire sub-Indian continent awake at night, since you by now had taken to nocturnal yodeling, and that it was a case, not to put too fine a point on it, a belt up or else.
It was trumped up. I yodeled in an undertone at night.
Can you give his lordship and the jury an example of what you mean by yodeling in an undertone?
Oh!
Perhaps not a welcome sound to the ears of the sleeping populace around.
It echoed.
Precisely. From Himalaya to Himalaya, and then south to Cawnpore, and even more remote regions. If the wind were in the right direction, you could have been heard as far away as Tibet.
Only once.
I would suggest to you that reactions to your yodeling were characterized by a singular lack of restraint, and that arising out of this, hackles rose on both sides.
Not all that much.
And it is this feeling of suppressed rancour that colours your interpretation of the remarks you say you overheard from the old age pensioners when descending to the lavatories at night and at other times.
I'm only saying what I heard.
Some cheerfully disrespectful remarks. Remarks indicative of a certain degree, perhaps, of blunt humour, from which there was a total absence of any kind of rancour, and partaking of the nature of light-hearted pleasantries, not to be taken too seriously.
The air was blue.
At such an altitude, in so rarefied an atmosphere, conversation might well have begun to flag, but for some such fodder to keep it going, might it not? And the pensioners might well have been grateful for some topic of this nature, to keep boredom at bay.
That was not my impression.
Nevertheless, it's possible.
It's possible, yes.
Thank you.
It has been said, members of the jury, that to err is human. I would suggest to you that to err no fewer than 231 times, and on a quite disproportionate scale, as cosmic planning consultants have done over the years, is not human, but superhuman. The plaintiffs are bringing this case because they say they have been injured in their reputation by the words complained of. One might well ask, what reputation? A reputation for making monumental boobs? Cock-ups on a scale altogether unprecedented in the field of engineering? I would suggest to you that their reputation, so far from being in any way injured, has been abundantly vindicated. We have heard how venture after venture on which the plaintiffs have been advisers has come to a disastrous end. We have heard indeed of no single project which has succeeded. The record is one of disaster following upon disaster. They have, it might be said, a reputation for ineptitude unmatched anywhere in their field.
As we return to the court, counsel for the defence is making his final submission to the jury, and we pick him up as he enters upon his peroration.
It has been said, members of the jury, that to err is human. I would suggest to you that to err no fewer than 231 times, and on a quite disproportionate scale, as cosmic planning consultants have done over the years, is not human, but superhuman. The plaintiffs are bringing this case because they say they have been injured in their reputation by the words complained of. One might well ask, what reputation? A reputation for making monumental boobs? Cock-ups on a scale altogether unprecedented in the field of engineering? I would suggest to you that their reputation, so far from being in any way injured, has been abundantly vindicated. We have heard how venture after venture on which the plaintiffs have been advisers has come to a disastrous end. We have heard indeed of no single project which has succeeded. The record is one of disaster following upon disaster. They have, it might be said, a reputation for ineptitude unmatched anywhere in their field. All my clients have done in publishing the words complained of is to advance that reputation, not diminish it. In my submission, therefore, the plaintiff has failed to establish his case, and I would ask for judgment for the defendants with costs.
Once more to the court, the judge has come to the very crux of the matter the jury will shortly have to consider.
What you have to decide, members of the jury, is whether the words used are capable of having a damaging interpretation in the minds of reasonable people reading them or listening to them. Now let me repeat these words to you. They have made a right old bollocks up from start to finish, and we're going to take them to the cleaners over this and call their bluff once and for all. Now, you or I, reading these words in a weekly publication or a daily newspaper, or coming across them in a letter over the breakfast table, might well be disposed to think first sight that criticism of some kind is being levelled at the person or persons towards whom they are being directed. A right old bollocks up from start to finish. But let us look at this in the context of the other remarks of which it forms part. We are going to take them to the cleaners. We are going to call their bluff once and for all. Well, these are the kind of phrases that one would use, are they not, were one in a certain particular kind of mood. If perhaps one's wife had been more than usually cantankerous at breakfast, or the car battery was flat when one was attempting to start the car in pursuit of some perhaps rather attractive young woman disappearing rapidly into the distance, one would be looking, would one not, for some way of relieving one's feelings. Nevertheless, what you have to decide, having respect both to the facts and to what you know of human nature, is whether any reasonable person reading those words, "They have made a right old bollocks up from start to finish," and reading them in the context of the other remarks, would modify them in his own mind in the light of what, reading between the lines, he can infer about the writer's state of mind at the time of writing them. If he says to himself, "This person, this geezer, has clearly got out of bed the wrong side on the morning he wrote this, and is just getting it out of his system at the expense of the plaintiffs, so it hasn't got to be taken too seriously," then you may feel that the charge of malice falls down, since no reasonable person would attribute malice to it. If you accept this, it would seem to follow that any damaging imputation contained in the words, "They have made a right old bollocks up from start to finish," is non-existent, since no reasonable person, knowing the state of mind in which the words were set down, would believe them to be literally true. The fact, therefore, that they are literally true, if, as the defendants have tried to show, it is a fact, is, you may think, neither here nor there, and may be ignored, except by those who have suffered as a result. The facts, therefore, that you have to consider are simple ones.
It is now for the jury to retire, elect a foreman, and reach their predetermined verdict.